Everyone, I'm Brien Lundin. I'm the editor and publisher of Gold Newsletter, the host of the New Orleans Investment Conference, and I've been involved in the metals and mining market for, well, let's just say an awful long time. And one of my longest serving friends in this industry and my co-host today for this Frontier Jurisdictions webinar is Jim Paterson, who is a driving force not coincidentally, behind all three of the companies we'll be talking about today. But we're also going to be talking about some really important themes that have served all of us well through this long history in the bull market. And it is quite a bull market we're in. We're just starting to experience some of the volatility in this bull market that we have not yet experienced before, to at least to this degree, unfortunately. But Jim, I think this bull market, we've seen quite a few. I think this is really the best that we've ever seen, that I've ever seen. What do you think?
Yeah, I think a bunch of capital has flown in. Right now, I think the bull might shake a few people off, but it's just getting exciting and it's just getting started.
Yeah, that's the job of the bull market, to shake us out.
Mhm.
Uh, and I featured a piece in one of my publications recently where I remarked how I'd just been going through some of my old brokerage statements, and from the bottom of the market in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s to the peak, it was just tremendous from that beginning to the end, those two endpoints, the wealth creation that had occurred. But I brought up a chart of the XAU mining index during that period, and you saw the peaks and valleys along the way that really test your convictions. We're experiencing one of those right now.
Right. And I think only the committed are going to stay in it, and I think they're going to benefit in the end.
Yeah, and what we're talking about today will help people weather those changes, because we're talking about some really important themes, ways that the average investor, the retail investor, really any investor, can get an advantage over the rest of the market, because this is an inefficient market. There are real opportunities that it hands us here and there. And if you prepare for it and you think ahead, there's ways to use those to your advantages. One of the things we're talking about today is frontier jurisdictions, really getting in where others have yet to tread and enjoying all those advantages. You're one of the key drivers behind that for a number of companies, including those that we're talking about today.
Yeah, I think that the main point is that the political winds change and shift, and sometimes the market's perception of what jurisdiction is like is incorrect or maybe delayed. And in each of the cases of the three companies here today, they were pioneers moving in fast and before the crowds. And I think it's noted by the assets they've been able to acquire, and they are completely ahead of the curve. And so people listening to this presentation today may not have thought of these jurisdictions previously as good places to invest, but in this case, they're very interesting stories and worth hearing.
Yeah, truly untapped potential with in all these jurisdictions, long-standing mining history, but really not so much in the modern era. And because of this, one of the key first mover advantages is the ability to get prime positions, and a lot of them before the crowd moves in. There's another thing that I want to emphasize, and I really can't leave it to you to do that, because you'll start blushing as I talk about it. But throughout my long history and career in this industry, one of the key strategies that I've used, and really the one that I think has yielded the most gains and rewards over the long term, is finding the best groups, the pros who value their reputations more than a quick profit in the market, the people that are serially successful, and get into their deals, their opportunities early on, and just kind of ride the wave, as it were, and ride their expertise. Over the years, I've just reaped just tremendous rewards by getting in early in those kinds of deals. And that's what I'm really excited about today. That's the theme that I want to get across to people today. That's the opportunity to get in specifically today, three deals that the vast majority of investors in the sector don't know of. I mean, I mentioned in one of my pieces the other day that I would venture to say not 10 people know about all three of these opportunities and are actively involved in them. So we are actively involved. I think it's important to note that both you and I are invested in all three of these companies. We are as biased, as conflicted, and really as excited about the opportunities as you could be, but none of this is investment advice. It's educational in nature. Three of these companies aren't even publicly, or two of them aren't even publicly traded. So, it's a heads up, look for more opportunities and investigate these companies on your own, but none of this is investment advice. So with that said, Jim, why don't you give us a brief overview of the three companies we'll be talking about today?
Sure. And again, I am totally biased, long. I'm a director of all three of these companies, and I love all the people involved. They're great people, and so I'm happy to introduce them to your audience and the collective audiences here. We've got Greg Davis from Sun Peak, Ryan Finlay from Ekometall, and Chris Taylor from Aquitaine Metals. All three are CEOs of those companies, and they've got some very exciting stories.
Yeah, so let's get started. I'll introduce our first company, Sun Peak. Like all of these companies, I have friends involved in them, and Greg Davis is the driving force behind Sun Peak. And Sun Peak, with your help, Jim, worthy to note, important to note, has amassed a first mover advantage in Saudi Arabia, of all places, with geology that is essentially the same as what Greg has specialized in and where he has been extremely successful before. It's really exciting. I'm very happy to be a shareholder, and there's lots of news happening in this company as we speak. So, Greg, take it away.
Yeah, just want to make sure you can see my screen.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, give me 1 second here to make an adjustment. Sorry, guys. Hmm. All right. Well, good morning from Vancouver. Thank you very much, Brian and Jim, for including Sun Peak on the Frontier webinar. We're very happy to be here. Sun Peak is based in Vancouver, and we are currently focused on projects in Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia, as everyone knows, has a long history of a resource-based economy in oil and gas. But mining truly is a new frontier, and up until now, it has not been the focus of exploration in the country. So Sun Peak moved into Saudi Arabia just over a year ago. We have moved very fast. Our vision is to become the marquee or the leading exploration and development in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and I feel we're well on our way to achieving that. We also have lofty objectives of making multiple world-class discoveries, both in base metals and gold VMS deposits and orogenic gold deposits. And we feel that we have the geology to support those ambitions. We have the proven team of 20 plus years experience in this region on the west side of the Red Sea. We've quickly developed a very strong network in the kingdom, which helps us navigate our new surroundings. And we've proven in a short period of time that we can execute. We have 13 licenses so far, over 1,000 square kilometers, carefully selected, and we continue to add to our portfolio. I'll draw your attention to this map. This is where we've spent essentially 25 years of our lives in this region. We started in 2002 as a team at Bisha in Eritrea. We worked for Nevsun Resources under John Clark and Bill Nelson. And at the time, it was just an outcrop, a Gaussian outcrop. We applied some advanced geophysical techniques that we used in Canada, and we were very successful. The mine went into production 8 years later. Very, very 47 million tons, high-grade gold, copper, silver, and zinc. We then went on to manage another company, Sunridge, also in Eritrea, in the same Arabian-Nubian Shield rocks. We applied the same techniques, and once again, we were very successful. We established 6 deposits, took them from grassroots to feasibility, including large Embedero copper gold VMS deposit. And ultimately, we sold that to a Chinese company in 2016 and founded Sunpeak. Now, the Sunpeak's initial objective was to continue exploring these prolific rocks in the Arabian-Nubian Shield. And we put together the Sherry project. We began drilling it in 2020. We hit very good results in copper and gold, and we felt we're on our way to a third major success. However, the region has been unstable ever since, and it's been on hold in force majeure conditions. In the meantime, we've looked around in Sudan. But ever since we began working in this region, we've always eyed the Arabian Shield across the Red Sea. Now, the Red Sea is, as we know, there's black smokers occurring as we speak today on the bottom of the Red Sea, spewing out this rich sulfide material full of precious and base metals. And over the last 700 years, it's gone both to the west and to the east. And we've tried for literally 15 years to make inroads. We've made many attempts. However, we felt they had so much money in oil and gas, they just weren't interested in mining. But all that changed recently with Vision 2030, which was put together by the leadership of the country, and it's a plan for economic diversification in the kingdom. And it's made mining the third pillar of the economy, behind tourism and of course oil and gas. And that has fast-tracked everything. They've rewritten the mining laws more favorable, which it now allows for 100% ownership from foreign companies, and that's where we come in. And there's government programs, and everything is made to fast-track their mining industry full speed ahead. We've quickly put together, this is the Arabian Shield in Saudi Arabia. We have offices in Riyadh, Hanoukia, and Bisha, and Najran to service our projects. We have built a very, very strong exploration team, and we've put together so far 5 projects over 1,000 square kilometers. And over the last 9 months, we've used the same methods and techniques that worked in the same geology in Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Sudan. And we fast-tracked everything to the drill stage. We began drilling at Safra and Al Hila, Safra in May. We're currently drilling at Al Hila. Now, all of these have outcrop that pokes out of the ground with significant values of copper, gold, zinc, silver, lead in the outcrop. And we've done geophysics. They all have some size to it, and we do expect to make discoveries. These have all been carefully selected. We put, actually decades of research into it, but really we traveled extensively on the ground, probably over 50,000 kilometers looking at numerous projects. So each one of these we feel has potential to be a Bisha or an Embedero. So we're exploring these full speed ahead. We're drilling Safra and Al Hila. We expect to drill Al Maya and the new Round 9 licenses within the next year. At the same time, we're continuing to add to our portfolio, doing research, continuing to look for prospective ground, and there's much of it in this region. Just a few photographs here that give you an idea for what the terrain is like. This is the Al Hila project. That's a large Gossan, 650 meters long, up to 18 grams gold in the surface, up to 180 grams silver. The drill is currently drilling this, and through this Gossan here, 650 meters long, up to 30 meters wide. But in the last few months, we've traced the 7 kilometers where these Gossans appear underneath the cover rock for up to 7 kilometers. So not only does this have grade potential, but it also has size potential. Safra, we drilled in May, outcrop of very significant grades of gold, copper, zinc, and silver. We completed 1,400 meters on schedule, on time, on budget. Assays will be coming out probably in early July, and we do expect to make significant discoveries. The bottom right picture here is a new acquisition, and this is one that we're really excited about. It was on the Round 9 licenses that we acquired earlier this year. And on our initial exploration program, we discovered an unmapped, undocumented Gossan. We mapped it out for over 1 mile, about 1,500, 1,600 meters. It's 20 meters wide. It's like a textbook VMS deposit. It looks like Bisha back in 2002, 2003. We'll be fast tracking this one. It's called the Washak target through our methods over the next 6 months, and we expect to be drilling this one early next year. So lots of work, lots of news ahead for us. This is a rare opportunity in a new frontier jurisdiction. We do hold early mover advantage. We want to keep it that way. The licenses we have so far, we expect to make discoveries with our techniques, and we're continuing to add to it. And we've shown that we can move fast, do aggressive work as quick as we can, including drilling. And yeah, our team expects to make multiple discoveries. And I think I'm out of time, Jim, on my 5 minutes. There's
You absolutely are, but it was wonderful to
there's full
hear the
details on
story,
our
Greg.
website, and I'm happy to answer questions anytime.
I've got one quick question for you, Greg.
Sure.
I have worked in many places around the world, and sometimes there's jurisdictional or governmental obstacles, but Saudi's not like that. Can you tell people how the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia uniquely supports exploration development companies like Sunpeak?
Well, absolutely. And we have worked in many, we've been pioneers in many jurisdictions around the world, but this one is absolutely unique. They've established a Ministry of Mines like no other. It's well staffed, well educated, and very, very motivated to help you. We lean on the Ministry of Mines officials frequently, and they're continuing to support us. When we come to a disconnect, because the mining industry has moved so fast there, a bureaucratic disconnect, the first call is to the officials at the ministry, and they'll help push us through it. They are absolutely motivated to put mines into production. On top of that, there's incentive programs for exploration that we are participating in, where we get up to 25% of our expenditures back after each year on our projects, which is a absolutely unique situation I've never seen before. And furthermore, once we're over that fulcrum and in the development phase, the government has low interest loans that can fund up to 75% of the capital costs to development and the construction phase. So they are absolutely motivated to develop the mining industry as a third pillar of the economy, and they've proven it. It's absolutely a pleasure to work there. It's very easy. The area is sparsely populated where we're working. There's a road system. We can move as fast as we want in the country.
Great. Good. It's truly not a hand in the face, but rather a hand up. Like, I think that it's very obvious in Saudi how they really want to support the industry. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Greg. I'm going to get Chris to get set up to come on. And thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Brien.
So, Chris, as you get all set up, I will say that I was recently on a site visit for Aquitaine in Paris and Limoges, and it was unbelievable to see how much that team and the project has advanced quite recently, but definitely over the last 5 years. And it is very exciting time. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about Aquitaine, Chris, because you're strapped onto a rocket ship.
Well, Jim, it's nice to have such an impartial viewpoint here because I think you probably should emphasize to people that before you recruited me, you were in fact the CEO of this company during its formational stage.
There was a big uplift in management quality at that time, though. We can all admit that. So thank you very much. I'm going to drop off.
Unnecessary modesty. We all know your track record. So I'm just going to get my presentation going here in presentation view. And I assume everybody can see that now. And so, as Jim mentioned, we just had a site tour last week. I'm not accustomed to going through slides at this rate. I'll try to keep this as short as possible. I don't know if I can walk through a story that I am this excited about in just 5 or 6 minutes. So I'm going to do my best. So we're located, it's called Aquitaine Metals. It's private. Just right off the bat, we plan to go public. We plan to go through an IPO process later this year, October, November, somewhere in that range. So this is the Saint-Thierry-la-Perche gold producing district in the middle of France. In ancient times, this was probably the largest gold producing region in Western Europe. So we can talk about the history later on if we have a little bit more time. Why are we here in France? Well, the EU is very serious about bringing mining back into its territory. They recently passed passed something called the European Critical Raw Materials Act, and they have the goal, and it's the very aspirational goal of going from a current 3% to a near-term 10% of their critical materials being produced from the territory of the EU. And fortunately for us, our project is high-grade gold, but also has a number of critical metals, including antimony and tungsten that we see in the drilling. This is truly a gold district in scale, and I'll show you some slides to talk about that. It's 337 square kilometers. The government recently, just a few months ago, expanded our licensed exploration area. There are over 900, I repeat, 900 ancient open pit mining sites, and these were in operation by the Gallic tribes prior to the Roman conquest. There are 23 mines, open pit mines and underground mines from the 20th century. And the last mining operation shut down very recently in 2002. So if you're going to bring back mining to an area, it's good to try to do it in an area where it was recently in production. And so just to give you a feel, I also want you to have a note that a lot of the gray dots, if you look at those, there's those Gallic open pits. They occur in lines. You see them extending out along linear trends. The reason is that the project sits over a massive structural corridor that has a lot of mineralization in it. I'm going to get a little bit cheeky here, very, very quickly, quick and cheeky. I'm going to do a size comparison off of the Red Lake District. People know me from Great Bear Resources, which we sold to Kinross in 2022. If you look at the outline of our exploration perimeter is the red polygon. If I put that over at same scale in the Red Lake District, where I was recently working, you can see that the district in France encompasses the entirety of that Red Lake mining district for comparative size. So if you think of having the Campbell Red Lake mine, the Madsen mine, all the other ones in between up to Rubicon, it really shows you, and this is a map that I took obviously from my Great Bear Days presentations, but the scale here is incredibly impressive. It truly is a district scale opportunity. Why is the gold there? This is the slide that we used at Great Bear to make the big LP fault discovery. It's seismic data, lithoprobe data collected by the federal government. We saw that in the Red Lake area on the right, we saw a major transcrustal fault that localized all the major mines in the Red Lake area, except on the left, we saw there was open ground associated with another big transcrustal fault. And if you thought about the capacity of these both, the one on the left has the Great Bear deposit, which will be well over 10 million ounces at the end of the day. The one on the right probably has over 100 million ounces of resources and reserves, past mining, future mining on it. So this is a major, major gold district. What you're looking at the image in front of you right now is from France. The reason that we have over 900 historical mining sites, over 23 mines from the 20th century, is because we don't just have two of these major transcrustal structures like in Red Lake, there are 7 of them. And so all these mines, all this activity is lined up along the surface expression of these faults. Where they come to surface, that's where the mines are developed. So the scale of the opportunity, I'm not going to say it's similar to Red Lake. It's actually a much larger mineralized system. The project is also very interesting because from a European perspective, what they're very interested in is critical materials. And one of the best ways to find critical materials is with a high-grade gold system. So the situation that we see here in France is virtually ideal for what we would want to see. And what we see on the project with a lot of the recent drilling is quite a bit of tungsten along with the gold. We see silver, obviously, and we see a lot of antimony as well. And then, interestingly enough, if we have time to talk about it, there's a cross-cutting event, which is a polymetallic base metal and silver system, which brings in the copper, lead, and zinc. So it's very, very unique to have all of these things concentrated together in one place. In terms of gold, this is what the gold looks like. Historically, during production, this was very high gold recoveries, like well north of 90%, mid 90% recoveries. The reason is it's free milling, just visible gold. It comes out really easily. Gravity recoveries were very high. We expect in the future, if it goes into production, that recoveries will similarly be very high. These are some nice pictures from our recent drilling. And obviously the grades that we see here, if you're familiar with exploration like this is hundreds of grams per ton, sometimes in the kilo per ton range. Interestingly enough, we're still waiting for assays for this, but over the last couple of weeks, we've been noticing that some of the areas that we're drilling have a lot of scheelite mineralization. This is tungsten mineralization that comes along with the gold. This is very important for us because it's one of the commodities the EU is looking for most importantly, along with antimony. And so we see this now in several areas, and this should be very exciting when we get the news out to the public because having very high grade gold and what looks to be high grade tungsten together is sort of an ideal scenario. Also on the project, the thing on the right is this late cross-cutting base metal event. This was samples taken by the miners when they were underground at about 300 meters depth historically. On the left, there is historical high-grade antimony gold production on the property on the north and south part of the licensed area. And so this was it's of great interest to us, and it's another drill target that we'll be targeting later this year and next year. So project highlights so far, we started drilling about a year and a half ago. We started slow when we were increasing the rate of drilling. Now we have 2 drill rigs active on the site. Some of the notable initial results were 34.8 grams over 15.5 meters, which had 350 grams over a meter and a half in the middle of it. And then another grade hole that we saw was 16.5 grams over 20 meters. And that was with a wider envelope of about 9 grams over 37 meters. We're seeing a lot of material here, which is in the tens of meters of multi-gram, typically like 3, 4, 5, 6 grams, up to almost 50 meters of width. So it's very interesting. And there is a polymetallic association, as I mentioned, that goes along with this. The capital structure right now is quite simple. The company is just under 60% owned by management and insiders. And so far, up to this point, we've raised about $25 million. The last financing that we did was at $2.50 US a share. It gives us a market capitalization based on the last financing of about $100 million US. And with that, that's it. I'm happy to hand it back to you, Jim, and I can take any additional questions.
Hey, Chris, Brien here. You're actually handing it back to me.
Hey, Brien.
Expand on what Jim said, that the opportunity is unbelievable. I think that's fair to say. That was my reaction when I heard that your next deal after Great Bear was in France, of all places. It's fair to say I had a good bit of skepticism in regard to that. And I was invited to that VIP meeting in Vancouver where you really launched this and exposed it to a number of people and talked about it. And as an investor in the early stages, again, that same theme of Great Bear. And that was, an 85 to 1 winner for gold newsletter readers. So that's a really high bar to clear. You gave a presentation at that VIP meeting that I have to say was the best presentation I had ever seen. And you convinced me that this was the best gold opportunity I had ever seen. And I've been in this business quite a while, as I mentioned. So it's really extraordinary, really just mind-boggling. You made a credible case for this could be much larger than even the Dixie project.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get back to that skepticism, France.
Yeah.
What's the working environment there? I mean, the companies were operating there 20 some odd years ago. Why did they go away? What's different now? And also the critical metals component. How attractive is that to the French government?
Well, it's a few questions in one, Brien. And, the first case is the Europeans are very concerned with recent geopolitical developments. So they see the United States as one of being a less reliable sort of ally. And so they're trying to increase their military capacity. And they see the Chinese as being aggressive on the commercial side and being very domineering in terms of control of critical materials. And so if you think about it, countries like France specifically benefited for a long time with a good commercial relationship with their former African colonies. Virtually all those colonies are now under different management, I guess you could say. And so those direct commercial relationships that they benefited from like over a century are now gone. And so the Europeans, the French, they're looking for safe supplies of critical materials. It's a changing world. We know that there's unstable borders all over the place, the Middle East, we're seeing like increasing military activity, like in the Strait of Hormuz and other places now, commercial disruptions. So the Europeans were smart to see this coming. They brought in this Critical Raw Materials Act just a few years ago, and France, for its part, has recently, just over the last 2 years, updated its mining code to make it much more efficient to do exploration work and ultimately to bring mines into production. And they have really aligned themselves with trying to bring back this industry. And some of the things that we see, like those Gallic mines that we mentioned, there's over 900 of them. We know they're there because the French government itself, through trying to attract mining investment to this area, they flew a high resolution LiDAR, a geophysical survey that shows up where those mines are. And all we had to do was pay for the data. We didn't have to pay for the survey. And so they're doing smart things to attract foreign investment. And in our case, we're strongly partnered with a French team that was actually the origin of the project. And so by having French partnership, we have about 40 people working on staff right now on the project who are all French citizens. And this very focused view on giving the French government and the EU the critical materials that they desperately want because of the changed geopolitics, that puts us in a very good position to be a first mover here and to fulfill a need that they have.
Well, thanks, Chris. I'm very excited to see that tremendous potential about to be realized really in the weeks and months just ahead. So, wonderful presentation. We'll get back to you in a little bit with some more questions after we get through our next company, which is Ekometall. And Ryan Finlay is the driving force behind that company as he gets ready to present here. A little bit of background. I was brought to Ekometall through Jim, who is unsurprisingly in another interesting frontier jurisdiction, and that frontier is Austria. Ryan, when we first talked about this and I saw your land position, I told you that it would probably be easier for you to talk about the land you don't have in Austria than the land you have, because the land position is tremendous. The good news is you have hundreds of years of detailed mining data at your disposal. The bad news is that you have hundreds of years of mining data to work your way through, but you're right in the middle or really nearing the end of that process and have some exciting developments to share with us today. So, Ryan, I'm gonna hand it over to you right now.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Brian, for the very kind introduction. We're obviously thrilled about the opportunity. And so my name is Ryan Finlay. I'm the CEO at Ekometall Exploration. Ekometall is a project generator entirely focused on the underexplored historical mining districts of Austria. As Brian mentioned, we have recently scaled our mineral tenure package to approximately 10,000 square kilometers in the Austrian Alps, equating to approximately 12% of Austria's land area. So within these licenses, there are over 1,500 of these historical mine sites and exploratory workings, covering almost the entire slate of critical materials. You have everything from copper, lead, zinc, gold, silver, specialty metals that have been mentioned like antimony, tungsten, etc. And within these historical mining sites, there are a vast amount of historical records associated with these operations, specifically dating back approximately 500 years is what we see in the records. However, mining in some of these regions dates back actually to prehistoric times towards the Bronze Age. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into the data for you all. Specifically, I will focus on this Drow group, if you can see my cursor. They're in southern Austria and specifically Carinthia and East Tyrol. We have the Grossfragen license area, approximately 1,200 square kilometers, where my cursor is. So I'll just switch screens quickly. What I found astonishing about Austria is the depth and detail in the historical data. And so Austria's geological survey, called Geosphere, has put together practically an indexing of the historical literature associated with some of these historical mines. So what you're looking at here, this outline in red, is actually the historical Grossfragen copper and silver mine, as I mentioned in the Grossfragen license area. And so what Geosphere has done is they've actually taken each of these individual mining areas, as I mentioned, and indexed the historical literature to each of these areas. And so what you're looking at is a list of the pieces of information and pieces of literature that are associated with this Grossfragen mine or mining area alone. As you can see, dozens to well over 100 of pieces of historical literature. I'll focus quickly on the Carl Rochada paper written in 1878 about the Grossfragant mine and mining area. I actually have it, if you can see on my picture. It's 160 pages, goes into detail about this area. You have everything from these beautifully drawn, hand-drawn mine maps, this one specific to the Grossfragant copper mine. You have everything from historical production or historical ore grades coming out of this specific mine. I'll note some of the highest grade material here noted in point A. You have over 20 grams per ton gold, 200 grams silver, and upwards of 20% copper coming out of this mine alone. And for scale, this is one paper of dozens for one historical working of the 1500 that are present within our licenses. You have everything from historical production reports dating back to the 1500s for gold and silver in this area, in obsolete units of measurement. And so obviously the data is quite immense. And so what our company has done in its initial stages is we've taken this paper and ones like it. I think we're at 3,300 plus and counting, and we've translated them to English. We've digitized them, and we've actually managed to scrape the information that I was just showing you from these documents into an organized georeference database, backed by a proprietarily built AI platform, allowing us to make advanced queries and deep research on these historical documents in a way that streamlines what would have taken years to decades and millions of dollars of spend in the field. Now we have this information at our fingertips that our geologists can actively use for target and prospect generation. I'm zoomed back out to the Grossfragant license area outline. Just within this license alone, we've identified around 700 hotspots for exploration and points of interest across the entire portfolio. We're looking at well over 4,600 exploration hotspots. And so how this translates from historical data into prospect generation is our geologists will take the platform, do the research on the individual areas that we are interested in, and we can actually in a fairly what would take usually days to weeks is now taking hours to come up with exploration hypothesis. We can go into the field and prospect based on the information that's directly linked to this historical data, and go and follow up with ground truthing and sampling to confirm these prospects. As you can see on the right, this is a sample we pulled recently, which is now being sent to the lab as we speak. And so we think that the opportunity is now, and that we're at this inflection point where Ekometall has built this proof of concept in Austria, backed by this AI-powered historical intelligence with all this, thousands of pages of historical data. We've already run the full permitting and execution cycle for drilling and proved that out, within our team's capabilities. And we're actively continuing to build up both our Austrian-based technical team and geologists, as well as our advisory and board. And so, to summarize, we think now is the window of opportunity for Ekometall. We're operating, as Chris mentioned, similarly, and under the EU Critical Raw Materials Act, and the desire to bring critical raw material production back into these European countries. And we continue to build out a world-class advisory and board level team, as well as an Austria-based technical team with the on-the-ground expertise for both execution operationally and exploration geology. And so in the next 12 months, we plan to move from this really regional scale countrywide opportunity into a set of ranked high priority drill targets, going through the whole cycle of deployment of modern exploration tools, such as airborne geophysics, regional geochemical surveys, etc., to go forward and begin generating targets for execution. We operate under the premise that the best targets in Austria have not been drilled yet. This is an underexplored jurisdiction, and we believe that we're the company to go and execute on this opportunity. Thank you.
Awesome. Well done, Ryan. Ryan, I just want to think back. You and I sat down for lunch near Charlotte about a year ago, and I was absolutely blown away by the lack of friction and the low costs related to Austria's mineral tenure system. So, like, for those that don't know it, I think this ranks incredibly high, if not one of the better places in the world, and just in terms of cost structure. Can you talk to us about that?
I had the same exact reaction when I first came across this opportunity. We've been amazed at how efficiently the Austrian framework for exploration licensing and operations is set up. I guess for scale, we were able to scale from the really the 300 square kilometer nucleus of licenses to just around 10,000 within a 6 month period. We were applying for licenses in individual land blocks with the quickest license approval came for us in 4 days. I believe that was in East Tyrol within the Drow group. Um, and annual holding costs are extremely, I'd say, accessible and reasonable. For scale, the 10,000 square kilometers that we hold for 5 years at a time, that are renewable costs on approximately just under 200,000 euros per year. So globally competitive 10-year costs, and really facilitates this countrywide opportunity that we're so thrilled about.
Yeah, but just for brass tacks, it's less than 200,000 euros for 10,000 square kilometers per year, which is minuscule and
It's amazing.
allows a private company like Ekometall to compete with much larger organizations, which I think is critical. Thank you, Ryan.
Definitely. Thank
Brian,
you.
any words of wisdom here, Mr. Lennon?
Uh, yeah, you touched on how easy it is in Austria. I was amazed at Ryan, I think, did a wonderful or had a great idea to just test the process, and not even on one of their best prospects, but one that they needed to do a little work on to preserve the license. So he went and plopped a couple of quick holes in it. And I think, Ryan, the permitting process and everything else was measured in days instead of, as it is anywhere else in the world, in months. I mean, you just got the permits, got the drill as a test of concept, threw a couple of holes in there just to, get the process lined up and see if you could do it. And it was, from that standpoint, a remarkable success.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think, given the theme of the webinar being frontier jurisdictions, it was critical for us as a team in Austria to really prove out our ability to permit and operate in this I would say unrecognized exploration jurisdiction. And so we were able to on a first attempt achieve drill permits within approximately 5 months. Yet we think that that process can actually be streamlined with front-loaded work, and submitting certain pieces of material and items to the Austrian Mining Authority in advance of permit submission. And so we think that we've created an excellent baseline and are extremely confident in operating here moving forward.
Yeah, and our audience can see, we've gone into Brady Bunch mode here, as free for all
Need a
to
few
go
more
through.
squares up there, a few more
Yeah,
tiles on the.
so everybody's on board here. We had
Mm.
some questions supplied in advance by registrants we're going to work through, and I encourage anybody to ask their own questions among our panelists and expand on these. And just looking at the list here, the first question I've got is for Aquitaine's plans. What are Aquitaine's plans to grow the company into a public company? Are there any financings that we can participate in? And Chris, you addressed this in your presentation, but as someone who was familiar with the history, at one point, one of the ideas was to keep Aquitaine private, and spin out public companies, the
Mhm.
hub and spoke model down the road. As a shareholder, I'm glad that you're going public as a public company, but is that hub and spoke model or idea still part of the plan down the road, or are you're going to put your arms around everything and keep it to yourself?
It's a little bit of both approaches, Brian. Like Aquitaine itself with the Limousin gold project, gold and critical metal project that we've been talking about, it will go public. But we are setting aside the other portions of the corporate structure, and this includes some applications on other assets around France. That'll be maintained in a private capacity. That'll help us get those assets locked down. And there's other projects that we'd like to be collaborating on with our French team and over time. And these are in different commodities, different commodity streams.
Yeah, you mentioned tungsten. I know that early on, antimony was one of the ways that you envisioned it would really help because it's a critical mineral, go through permitting and et cetera with the government. But
Mhm.
people don't really realize that tungsten has gone up about 5 or 6 fold in price over the past year or so. That is one of the stealth bull markets right now. We've been trying to focus on it in Gold Newsletter. So you really are starting to see that in the mineralization.
Yeah, like one of the interesting things about France is it has quite a strong manufacturing industry, and this is civilian uses, military uses. It's across the spectrum, and the two commodities that they're really looking for most seriously are tungsten and antimony. And so we're very pleased that our project has the ability to supply both of those materials. And certainly, I don't want to get ahead of myself. It's still exploration stage. It's not yet a mining project. I think we need to be clear about that, especially when we begin working in these new jurisdictions. But so far, the indications are very positive. And if we can be part of a solution on those supply chains, we know that that could expedite us, for instance, in Europe. And Ryan would be familiar with this as well. If your project becomes designated a critical materials project, there's a different, sort of like a streamlined permitting pathway, environmental review work, other things that you do, which can accelerate the project. And that's the kind of thing that we're interested in, and we may be able to benefit from given the fact that we found these other materials.
I think one of the important things, though, is when you have these types of critical minerals and materials, it's great to have a byproduct of super high grade gold, which is the case of Aquitaine, because in the end, you need a mine that is robust and can operate at margin so it can deliver these critical minerals and actually survive and persevere over different market cycles, because these critical minerals tend to go up, rise and fall fairly cyclically. And sometimes you just need the bread and butter earnings of the gold project
Absolutely.
or a copper project.
Yeah. And we do note in France, like there's another project called the Emeris project, what's in a company called Emeris, and the project's the Emery. And this is an open pit or underground block cave as well. Depends on the final mine design, but it's a lithium project that they're bringing forward. So in terms of advancing these sort of critical metal mandates or critical mineral mandates, that's a project that's ahead of us in terms of years of direct exploration work. And the government is very keen to see that all the way through to production. Indeed, it's seen something like about 50 million euros of direct investment from government-related entities at this point. So they're very serious about getting these commodities going and those supply chains established in country.
Yeah, I want to toss one up to Greg here. Greg, every time I talk to you about projects that you have, I come away convinced that I need to own more Sun Peak. Uh, your enthusiasm is really infectious. One of the things that recently hit me, and it goes back to, your Sun Peak is unique in this webinar in that you are publicly traded and you do have catalysts as
Is it, is
drill
he
results
cutting out
coming
just for
up
him or just me?
very
Is it
soon.
okay?
And
Brian, can you repeat that last thing? You kind of
well,
cut out.
oh, I did. Okay. So Greg and Sun Peak are unique in this webinar that they have news and catalysts coming up, as in drill results and some really exciting targets. Greg's very enthusiastic about these targets. I'd like to see if he can kind of bring that across to our audience. One of the things that I'm impressed with in their last news release and looking at some of the photographs in the project is the sheer scale of what they can see just poking out over the ground and the strike lengths that they've extended these to. Greg, how much are you looking forward to these drill results that are coming out really within days?
Yeah, well, absolutely, Brian. I mean, everything that we've acquired, like I said earlier, we've carefully selected it. We've examined it, and we're looking for grade and size potential. And so we see that on all of our projects in Saudi Arabia. I think one of the ones that you're referring to is the Al Hila project, which we're currently drilling as we speak. Initially, I think we announced in January that we sampled and mapped out a gossan, which is the surface expression of a VMS where it's been exposed to water and air and oxidized. 650 meters long strike and up to 30 meters wide with significant grades of gold and silver, up to 18 grams gold and 180 grams silver. Since then, we've done further mapping and geophysics and traced that zone 5 to 7 kilometers. And we found other gossans directly along strike, same composition, wherever it's exposed. I mean, the first one goes underneath a sandstone formation, but then it appears a few kilometers to the south. And so we've done, and it's ongoing, we're doing EM work, and EM work defines conductors, and it looks like these things are very continuous and they're open to depth. And not only do we have grade, but we have size potential. And what we don't know, this is the kind of the fun part about VMS in this region, we know there's gold and silver in the gossan at the surface. What we don't know is how the unaltered material, what's the composition of it? What are the copper grades? What are the zinc grades or lead? And that's what we'll find out over the next couple of months with our drilling.
I'd like to jump in here. So, Ryan, you spent a lot of time talking about the database, the historical data. The next phase of the company is moving towards prospecting and eventually geophysics. And so what do you think you're going to see there? You made a bold claim that the best targets in Austria have not been drilled. So what are you going to do about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really exciting about the Austrian opportunity is the diversity of deposit styles and commodities that can be targeted, given our countrywide approach. As I mentioned, we're seeing everything from copper, lead, zinc, gold, silver, and even some of these specialty metals. I mean, we have deposit styles, and the way the geology seems to be oriented in Austria is almost like a bullseye, where within the Tauern window, central Austria, you have a lot of these orogenic gold and precious metals deposits surrounded by these copper and polymetallic VMS and some stratabound style copper deposits. And then surrounding that, you have a lot of these carbonate hosted or Mississippi Valley type lead zinc deposits running east-west in the north and south of Austria. And so, obviously something we're working through at the moment is scoping the correct geophysical methods to, effectively target these. And obviously airborne geophysics is something we're strongly considering, given, the ability to efficiently cover ground, because that is really where we're operating at this level right now is scale. And so that's really what we're working on at the moment. And, there will obviously be more to come in the coming months.
One of our
Thank you.
questions asked about the ease of permitting for Austria and France and how welcoming are Saudis to foreign investors. So really, it's a throw-up question for everyone on how easy is it to work in these respective countries. So why don't we go in order and address that, and specifically the ease of permitting. And Ryan, why don't you start, because I was amazed at how quickly you got those drill holes permitted.
Yeah, on the permitting side, I mean, our experience has been that the mining framework, or really the mining code in Austria, is extremely well set up. The law is quite black and white, and there's a clear framework and process from moving through exploration, which we obviously have experience with now, into the mine permitting. So, for the question of mine permitting, we see this framework as something that a well put together application can work through efficiently. And so, speaking to experience, we're confident in the Austrian regulatory system, and I would say have been able to operate efficiently to date.
Chris, what do you think about working in France, other than the great food and wine?
Well, what we've noticed is it is an efficient process through the permitting. The permitting avenues are straightforward. It's a little bit different than North America in some cases, although I would say from a permitting perspective, probably simpler and more straightforward than something like, for instance, British Columbia is right now. That's a little bit more complicated. And just to give you an example, in France, once we'd done the preparatory work that we needed to do, which is like environmental baseline work, community consultation, these sort of things, it was 3 months for us to get our last drill permit. And so it's a little bit different than what you might be used to. You do the preparation work, you do the consultation work, environmental baseline data collection, and when that's all complete, if you've checked off all the requirements, then the permits arrive in short order.
Greg, handing it over to you, one of the questions for you was also how expensive is it to operate in Saudi Arabia, drilling costs, et cetera. I know you've talked to me a lot about how easy it is to drive up on a paved highway in an air-conditioned vehicle as opposed to working in Ethiopia and Eritrea. Talk to us a bit about that as well as the permitting timeline.
Sure. Well, I can go on about that. I mean, it is extremely easy. You have the road network, it's sparsely populated. We're used to working in other jurisdictions where it takes us an hour to 2 hours to travel 40 kilometers on a road in disrepair, full of livestock, and never knowing when you're going to come across a roadblock. In Saudi Arabia, we get on a freeway and drive 120 kilometers an hour, smooth, almost to each of our projects. And there's power. Our team can actually they instead of hanging onto the handle and rattling around in a truck, they work on their phones or just read the news or whatever. So everybody is relaxed and it's very, very easy. As far as the permitting goes, it's really a unique situation in Saudi Arabia. There's sort of two general ways to acquire. One is through the auctions, the government auctions that they've been holding. They've had 9 so far. In the auctions, they pre-clear the licenses with all the different ministries, military, tourism, agriculture. And when they do that, they do it as if they're considering that a mine is going to be built there. So the thinking is, as you go through your exploration and development, ultimately completing your feasibility study and submitting your mining application, it's already pre-cleared by all the different government agencies and ministries. You still have to do it to World Bank standards, and if there's a flaw in your feasibility study, you can delay. But there won't be any new concerns from the government, which is absolutely unique. When you do the auctions, it's pre-cleared, and then when you apply for open ground, the clearing comes after. So it can take a few months, up to a year, as it goes through all these steps. But it's for the best long term. It's a unique situation that I haven't seen anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, I think one of the things that struck me is the ease of working in these places. It was something that I think market perception, when you mention Saudi, people say that they've been there before, they tried 20 years ago, or you'll never make it happen in France, or why the hell would you be in Austria? And in each of the cases, when we actually push a little further and learn more, we were super pleasantly surprised. And it's been amazing. And the support in all 3 of these jurisdictions is quite unique. And the interaction with the ministries has been very open and I think collaborative, which is not the same in other places I've worked. So these are really unique, great people, super exciting projects, and the places are frontier, but they all have great experience with thousands of years of mining history to draw from.
Gang, we're running toward our 1 hour kind of soft limit to this webinar. We do have one question. I didn't want to focus on the macro picture in this webinar, but someone did ask a macro question that I think is kind of to the moment, and that's what would the potential of a market correction, how would that affect investments in gold mining? And I think they're obviously referring to stock market correction or really all risk assets because they're so positively correlated these days. And make no mistake about it, if there is a significant correction, a downdraft in the broader stock market and risk assets to the point where there is a liquidity crunch, a liquidity vacuum, it is, as it did in 2008, as it did in March 2020, it's going to affect the metals, it's going to affect the miners. It will, in my mind, once again, as it was in those situations, represent an extraordinary buying opportunity because the central banks, the Fed leading the charge, will come in with just mind-boggling degrees of liquidity to rescue the markets. And what we're looking at today is a way to kind of insure yourself from that kind of volatility. Take the long view, get into jurisdictions before anyone else, or largely before anyone else, take that first mover advantage, get those fundamentals in your favor, but also get behind really good groups that have proven their ability to deliver really legendary successes in this sector. People who are very cognizant of their reputations, but still have that thirst, that desire to make new discoveries, and are not out there for a quick buck, but to make really big discoveries that are going to move the needle for them, for the world, and for you as a shareholder. I'm very happy to expose our attendees today to these three opportunities that I've had the great fortune to be involved in early on. Thank you, Jim, for keeping me in the room for some of these opportunities, and Chris and Ryan and Greg, who has always given me the opportunity and gotten me really excited about Sunpeak. Lots of opportunity down the road, and this is really, pulling back the curtain, giving you a peek behind the curtain at some extraordinary early stage opportunities. Jim, my co-host, do you have any thoughts to add to this before we?
Sure. I met Brien in 1997, and I'm totally honored to be on a panel with you, Brien. Thank you very much. I'm also very honored to be on a panel with these fine gentlemen. I know them well. I really think they're amazing. These are high impact individuals and companies. And from a housekeeping perspective, I think there's going to be a link sent out after this if you've registered. So you'll be able to watch this again, forward it around. Each of the companies have their own website. You can follow up and ask deep questions. There was a few questions that were asked that we didn't answer, but we want to, totally transparent, and any one of these executives will answer the questions that are asked of them. I really want to thank all of you for, cramming this into your busy schedules. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And do go to all these companies' websites, sign up for their information, get in their mailing lists, and you'll be advised of opportunities as they occur. Thanks, everyone. Great to be with you all today, and let's enjoy this historic bull market.
Bring it on.
Thanks, Brien. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, everyone.